what the heck did I stumble into? This is his first time on our program. We invited him to come on to talk about his unit, which was the 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division, otherwise known as the Wolfhounds. John Quintrell is our guest tonight, who wrote a book about his time in the Wolfhounds in, was it 1968, 69?
You're right. 68,
John was,
69 was.
And
Go
Jerry,
ahead,
you
Jerry.
served with him.
yes, John was there in 1968 to 19. He was there August of 1968 to August of 69, and I was there in July of 69, July 70. So I crossed paths with John for about a month before he left. But
And I know this is Sean is hosting tonight, but before John joins us, I do want to ask you if you could tell our group here what makes the Wolfhounds special, apart from their cool nickname.
well, what makes the Wolfhound special? We're a very tight unit. We were since the First World War. This unit's been recognized. We have more presidential citations than any other unit. I think we have 11. And everybody are brothers. We have an association.
Hmm.
And John Quintrell started to have reunions with his platoon, the 2nd Platoon and Charlie Company. And about 15, 17 years ago, and about 10 years ago, he invited the 1st Platoon to join the reunion. And some of us knew each other, but it was great to start seeing guys that we served with. That we haven't seen in 40, 50 years, and it was great.
What was your
Yeah.
impression of John when you met him when you got to Vietnam?
He was a well seasoned veteran, and one thing I remember when I got off the plane when I landed in Cam Ranh Bay is all the people going home from Vietnam. They all had this look on their face, this far away look, and you could tell they've been through a lot. And when I went home, I saw that the same thing. People that were going home, and the people coming there were all light skinned because we're out in the sun for a year,
Yeah.
and over 100-degree weather, humid, bugs everywhere, scorpions, leeches, all the worst elements you could think of were there.
You put it right on the nose there where you said that he was well seasoned. And I
Yeah.
think those two words kind of speak volumes. And in fact, it does speak an entire volume of well seasoned, because what I went through in reading my 365 days is, I think, one of the more harrowing books that I've read of a veteran's perspective. That what he went through was, as military calls it, the suck, and it was pretty harrowing.
I read John's book and I couldn't put it down. I think I read it in 2 or 3 days because we're the same unit, and because everything he was saying was true, as true as can be, that you could put something in a book, and it brought me right back there again. Okay, it was so real, everything he said in the book, and it just brought me back there again. And when I read the book, it's like I kept thinking about Vietnam again, because it just put me back in that mindset again. And we're lucky we made it home. We've been through a lot.
Before you yourself got that well seasoned, how did you end up in Vietnam?
Well, I 17 years old, I graduated high school, and I started at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. And I was in a program called Shop Learner to Journeyman. They didn't have an apprenticeship at the time. An apprenticeship would have gave you a 4-year deferment like college, okay? Because working for the government, the Navy.
Mhm.
So 2 years into the program, they offered us the apprenticeship, and I turned it down. I wasn't going to take an apprenticeship and get a deferment if my country needed me, and my country wanted me to be in the Army and drafted me. And my father's a World War II infantry soldier. My uncle's a World War II tank commander hero from the Second World War, Distinguished Service Cross, 4 Purple Hearts. They got a building named there after him in Fort Knox called Tempesta Hall. And I went to 12 years of Catholic school. I was very disciplined, and I wanted to do my duty and then go in the military.
So you enlisted?
No, I was drafted.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't realize this. They drafted in the Marine Corps too, because when I went down to 401 North Broad and Broad Street in Philadelphia, they said you, and you were Marines. So they drafted you in the Marines for 2 years. Also, you know, if they asked for volunteers, but if you wanted to go in the Marines, you could have, or they just picked people because they needed people in the Marine Corps.
Did you know anything about the Wolfhounds before you got to Vietnam?
No, I didn't know anything about the Wolfhounds, but John told me when he got off the plane and he was going to go to where he was told where he's being sent. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to go to Wolfhounds." He said, "I feel sorry for you." So that gave him a hint right away, but I didn't get that hint. I just, was sent there, and we spent a few days when we got there being indoctrinated into the company and what the Wolfhounds was all about and what our mission was. And, within a few days, I'm out at a fire support base.
Where was that fire support base?
I think it was Kotrick, but I'm not sure. There was about 4 or 5 of them that were in over the course of the year I was there. And, after we fire the base is so long, and then, Cu Chi was the base camp. Okay. You see Cu Chi in the map in 3 Corps area was the main base camp. And then outside the base camp, you had battalion size base camp, which was Fort Jackson. And then after that, you had fire support bases, mostly close to Cambodia, because I think we're used as bait to draw out the enemy. But the enemy was always trying to get to Saigon, and we were there to stop from getting to Saigon.
As everyone knows, I'm not a veteran, but understanding a bit about the Vietnam War, I would say I would think that being down that far south, it wouldn't be as dangerous. Not like up in I Corps, right on the.
Well, it was very dangerous because they traveled down the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Cambodia to get to our areas, to get to Saigon. They didn't want to be at the DMZ area. They were coming from North Vietnam, going around the DMZ, going down the Ho Chi Minh Trail to try to infiltrate 3 Corps and 4 Corps area to get to Saigon. So a lot of times, I'm not to say all the time, but every unit had their own battles. Everybody has their own story about Vietnam, some worse than others, but there was the enemy everywhere. If it wasn't the Viet Cong, it was the North Vietnamese.
Bill Confer, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Why, could you put that map back up and I'll show you where some of the Wolfhounds were. We flew a lot with them, and Jerry, we were the Hornets. Do you remember the Hornets?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah, well, we flew the Wolfhounds an awful lot. We worked with the 25th Division almost all the time. But what Jerry's saying is right about the infiltration routes, because if you look just north of Cu Chi and a little bit more to the west, Tay Ninh, right there. That's one of the main supply routes from the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then if you go just a little bit south down there by Duc Hoa, just south of Cu Chi, there you go. That was the other main supply route. And it came in through, I don't see, we got Go to Ha there, but yeah, right down below the word duck in Duc Hoa, right below that word, that's called the Eagle's Beak. And we did a lot of work down there. There was a fire support base, Washington there. And
Parrot's Beak?
Pardon me?
Wasn't it the parrot speak?
That was
Yeah.
Parrot
Oh,
Peak.
yeah,
That was
Parrot
Parrot
Peak.
Peak.
Yeah,
Parrot Peak.
we called it a little bit of everything. But yeah, it was one of the two. But I got to tell you, we didn't know half the time we were carrying either the Wolfhounds or whatever other unit we were carrying. We just knew it was the 25th Division because we were taking them uh, out from Fire Support Base Pershing was there. And right there where the word duck is from Duckwa at the Parrot Peak, there was a fire support base called Fire Support Base Washington. And I remember when you did your visit to Vietnam, you were talking about burial grounds for Vietnamese. That happened to have been a huge, huge area at Fire Support Base Washington, right about where the word duck is. There was a huge burial ground there for North Vietnamese that came across the border and came into Fire Support Base Washington there. So yeah, Jerry was right. If you were in the Wolfhounds, that was right in the middle of several major routes leading down to Saigon from the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Jerry, when did you get assigned to the Wolfhounds?
July 9th, 1969. I joined the Wolfhounds. I was in Vietnam. And while I was in the platoon, if I wasn't going on daytime patrols, I walked point numerous times. Sometimes I carried a shotgun. I was carrying an M16 with me, or an M79 grenade launcher, and I got pretty good at it. But we take turns walking point for different reasons, and also I did something I never thought I would do is volunteer to go out on a 5-man killer team at nighttime. So, there's things that you do that you never think you're going to do, but when you're with your buddies and you make friends, and they want you to be with them on missions, and then you do it. I'm only 21 years old, 20 years old. All I'm thinking is being part of a team and being very mission oriented.
Did you feel accepted early? I know the Wolfhounds dealt with a lot of replacements, so I'm sure it was difficult to gain that trust.
When you first get there, you get some kind of initiation. Like they threw us in the mud hole. It was the monsoon season for a few months, and they threw us in a mud hole. But you're accepted pretty fast because from the first week you're there, you're going on missions with hardened veterans that've been there for a while. Okay. And you learn a lot from them. Okay. Always to be alert, never be laxed. Always be alert to anything because, it could be a matter of life and death when you're out on these patrols.
Is that a picture of you back then?
Yeah, that's me.
Todd is a sleuth. Todd can find anybody. But wow, you look like you're not even 20. You look like you're 17.
Yeah, I was probably 20 or 21 there.
So the first time that you went out beyond the wire, do you remember that?
Yes. And we had squad leaders and platoon sergeant at the time, and they would we would learn on the move, and they would tell you different things to look out for. Look out for booby traps, because some fire support bases had booby traps all over the place, and just to be aware of different things that the enemy might do. I mean, these Viet Cong. I mean, during the daytime you think they're friendly villagers, and at nighttime they're trying to kill you. So it wasn't an easy situation, especially when you don't speak the language.
Did you go to Vietnam with a particular thought of who the Vietnamese were, and when you finally encountered them, how did it support it or change your mind?
You mean while I was there?
Yeah.
Well, while I was there, I mean, my thought was, I'm going there. These people want to be free. and they don't want to be taken over by communism. Okay. And that was my thought. Okay. To be free like our country and not have communist people having them have nothing and never have a life. So to me, that's what I was going there to fight for, is to keep them free.
Al Smith put into the chat, Jerry, did you know Mike Tooke, Tooke, second lieutenant infantry platoon leader with the 25th Infantry Division?
Oh, when was he there?
Not sure. I assume, Al, if you want to put in when you were there, they went to the 25th and Al went to the 1st. Find that out.
When did Jerry leave or get there in July? What day?
No, July 9th.
July 9th. Okay.
And I left July 11th of 1970.
Were you near Go to Ha?
Go to Ha, no. Cu Chi was our main base camp. We were lucky we got to stay there 2 days a month for a stand down to get showers and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you guys you stayed out in the field an awful lot.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, we're in a fire support base. We either building them or breaking them down. But there was one time we were out in the field more than 30 days. We didn't have a home. We just lived out in the field for 30 days. That wasn't easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was that unique to the Wolfhounds?
Yeah, it was unique to be out in the field for that many days, and they just would fly food out, sea rations and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I still got my P-38 to open the cans up. So most Vietnam veterans will keep their P-38, and they still work pretty good too.
Don't make them like they used to. Al, I see you put in there, Mike was there in 67, 69. I believe Jerry was there 69, 70. So what you said you took points sometimes, but what was your job? What was your main job whenever you
well, my job was an infantry soldier.
Okay.
I was a PFC when I got there. I became a Spec 4, and we already had squad leaders that were sergeants and stuff. So there wasn't much room for promotion after that, except sometimes what they call the clerks and jerks would steal the rank before it came out to the field. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but they get so many allocations for rank for NCOs, and you see these clerks and jerks sitting behind a desk with sergeant stripes on. So I always thought that was kind of funny, but it is what it is.
Can you explain that? I've not heard that term before.
Well, we used to call clerks and jerks the ones that were in the rear that had desk jobs, and they were the ones that type up orders for different things. Your orders for whatever's going on with you, citations and awards, and then sometimes the allocations of rank would come in, and sometimes you see these guys sitting behind the desk with sergeant stripes on. So, and then people in the field that are getting shot at every day, they have to really work hard to get to that position of sergeant.
Right.
Understood. So did the Wolfhounds carry some sort of like a higher level of importance? Like the Wolfhounds, you have to work harder to be a part of that group?
Well, the Wolfhounds is noted from the First World War, given the name by the Russians. And our motto is non aspera tyrant, which means no fear on earth. Okay, means we're not afraid of anything. Okay, I was never afraid when I was there going out on missions. I had this mindset when I got there, and my mindset was always be on the offensive, because when you're on the defensive, something might happen to you. So you got to be on high alert at all times, and be professional as a soldier, and look out for your buddies, and stay have a close knit unit.
Sorry, hold on.
I was just going to say this is a picture that was taken just this fall, right? You received a Bronze Star finally. This looks like Joe Griffey's right there.
That is Joe Griffey's. That's all my state and federal representatives up there with me. Let me explain a little story to you. Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me start from the beginning. My worst day in Vietnam, April 2nd, 1970. On April 1st, they brought us out. We were on a stand down one day. They cut it short. We had to go on a mission and be a blocking force. And the next morning, with little sleep, no breakfast or nothing, flew us out to an area called the Renegade Woods, where the 75th and 76th Ranger Detachment went out there to do some recon because they heard there's a buildup of NVA forces in that area. It was a very bad area, and it was nothing but hedge groves. And we were brought in on 3 helicopters. Only our platoon got there first, and we're in a wide open area. We were there for maybe 10 minutes or so, and our platoon leader, Ronnie Clark, put us in 2 columns. The point man was in the front, lieutenant and his RTO, and myself was third in the column. He always wanted me with him because he knew I was very experienced. So when he gave the order to move out, the point man in the right column was rattled with bullets, killed. I started attacking the position. I was firing at where the fire was coming from. While I'm running towards the position, I see my lieutenant hunched over. He's shot in the stomach. I grabbed him. I start dragging him out of the kill zone. I got shot through the ear and through the side of the head. It spun me around. I pulled out a hand grenade and threw it into the enemy position and took out the machine gun there. 4 people in my platoon were killed that day and 12 wounded, including myself. I didn't come back to the company till about a week later. I was in the hospital. I didn't have any life-threatening injuries. I just had vertigo problems, tremendous headache, hearing loss, tinnitus, stuff like that. So probably if I wanted to, I could have complained enough where they would have sent me home, but I was intent on spending the year there. So they gave me a job in a motor pool after that. But I was told by the senior cadre that we know what you did. You're being put in for a very high Valor award. So about a month later, I got presented my second Purple Heart for wounds received in battle. Never received anything else. Never said anything about it again. And I just went home and went on my life. So years later, we started having reunions. And the people in my platoon were talking about the Renegade Woods, and they were astonished to find out that I never received anything for my valor. Most of the people in the platoon received a Bronze Star with V device. The point man in the right column got a Silver Star. Point man in the left column got a Distinguished Service Cross. And the platoon sergeant got a Silver Star who got killed. So my platoon sergeant, Jerry Radley, who was with me there for the whole tour, the day before the Renegade Woods, he got a job in the rear. And the guy that took his place got killed the next day, the guy in his place. So my old platoon leader, Lieutenant Weisner, who was promoted to XO, had to come out to the Renegade Woods within 2 hours because all the officers in the company were killed or wounded that day. And he took command of the company for about 4 or 5 days. So at our reunion, Jerry Radley, my platoon sergeant, talked to Cy Weisner, my executive officer, and they talked to eyewitnesses who saw what I did, and they decided to put me in for the Medal of Honor. Okay, so it was put in through the congressional people. They went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and they said, Lieutenant Weiser cannot sign off on this paperwork because he's not in a command position. How could he not be in a command position? He's company commander. He's still an officer in the chain of command. So this went on for a few years with this same thing that Fort Knox, Kentucky was saying the same thing. So I was getting a little disenchanted with the military, not recognizing me, and they had a package together with the after action report. Anything they wanted was in there. I had eyewitness statements, the medic who treated me in the field, and whatever, and that still wasn't good enough. But then They have a military basketball association game for veterans to prevent suicide in sports. And Joe Griffiths is on that board. And I sang at the VA last year with my group. I sing a cappella. I sing songs of the 50s and 60s. That helps me with my PTSD. And they asked us to sing the Star Spangled Banner at the Military Basketball Association game, which we did. And at that seminar and basketball game, Joe Griffiths introduced me to retired Sergeant Major Tom Campbell, who recently retired. And he told him my story. And he talked to me about it. And he asked me to send him the information. I sent him the information. And he gave it to his general. He worked for a 2-star general. And the general says, this isn't right. We got to make this right. And he contacted Fort Knox, Kentucky. And within a month, they said they didn't want to go for the, if they put me in for the Medal of Honor, it might take 18 months to 2 years. So they want to get me a Valor Award right away. So they gave me what everybody else got in my platoon, which is a Bronze Star with the Vice. So they wanted me to come to the Pentagon, and I said, could you come to Philadelphia? Because I'd rather all my friends and family know about this, and I would really be honored if you could come to Philadelphia and do the ceremony at the Chapel of the Fourth Chapel of the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. And they agreed to do it. Joe Griffiths was the master of ceremonies, and James McCormick, retired Army captain. He's the director of Vietnam Veterans of America, Governmental Affairs, and Captain Lou Cavalieri, retired Navy captain, were speakers there. And I'll tell you, I felt like it was very spiritual. I felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. That I finally been recognized. And what I've been told, there's going to be people trying to get it elevated in their future.
It's phenomenal, Jerry. I was going to ask you how it felt to finally be recognized. I also unmuted Joe Griffiths here. And Joe, when you heard about this story, what struck you?
That many more Medal of Honor should have been given out for bravery. I don't, I can't see where the military has to be so fine line that they can't take the word of a private because he's not a lieutenant or a captain. Some officers only spent a month, 3 months in the field. You take some of these guys like Jerry talked about, never got promoted. They were some of the bravest people because they were privates and they learned how to stay alive for a year. I used to tell guys all the time, get with the oldest guy that's there. Don't worry about his rank. He knows how to stay alive. And that's what you wanted. But one thing I've learned over the years, Jerry's like my brother. Jerry, we must talk a dozen times a day. What I love about Jerry is Jerry didn't stop protecting and caring for people when he came home from Vietnam. Every morning, Jerry goes to Dunkin' Donuts in South Philadelphia, where he lives, and meets up with 4 or 5 guys he went to John Newman High School with, which lost about 22 veterans from that graduating class during the Vietnam War. And he's there to make sure that they're okay. So Jerry's been a protector for a long time. And I tell Jerry, medals are medals. But the gift God gave you was to come home and continue to serve and protect your fellow man. So whether Jerry, and we're involved in helping Jerry get the Medal of Honor. Jerry's got a bigger medal pinned on his heart that God gave him. He kept him alive when he was wounded. He got him through some rough times when he came home. And he's still leading point, taking care of his men. And to me, when I read about, you guys sent me the email that you had the Wolfhounds on. When I hear the word Wolfhound, I think of Jerry Tempesta. And he's just a great, great guy. He's the first one to go to a hospital. One of his buddies are ill. They go there, they sing. He goes to the VA hospital. Even though they may cancel 4 appointments on him in a week, he'll still go there in the weekend and sing for the soldiers. And he never puts himself first. And that's what I I respect most about Jerry. Not the medals or not the fighting in the war. It's what he did with all that experience at 19, 20 years old, and almost in his mid to late 70s. He's doing it better now than he did when he was a teenager.
Jerry, PBC is going to be coming out east towards you in Philly area next year. We might have to tap you to sing for us, and maybe come and share some of your story at an in-person breakfast too.
You're coming out to Philadelphia?
We'll be in the Philadelphia area. Yeah.
When will you be in the Philadelphia area?
Dates to be determined, but we'll be there in the summer.
Okay. Are you going to come to my house or where do you want to come to?
Todd can sleep there,
now,
and
right now I'm in my man cave. So you might want to come to my man cave, and Joe Griffey can come here too.
Hey, Jerry, I shared in the chat here Father James N. Drucker's article about the ambush at Renegade Woods, which is an incident, a battle that I had not known of, from the VFW magazine. Could you tell us a little bit about that article and what that article covers?
Well, that article covers about what happened that day. Now, Father Drucker, a retired Catholic chaplain, he's an Air Force captain. He, during the COVID, he interviewed people in my platoon. Now, some people didn't want to even talk about the Renegade Woods. That's how horrific it was to them. But other people, the eyewitness George Weldon, who lives in Havre de Grace, Maryland, he's the eyewitness to what happened. The medic, Danny Klosner, which he lives in Wisconsin. He's a witness. Jim Bergman, and also platoon sergeant Jerry Radelaide, and who lives in North Carolina, Raleigh, and Cy Weisner, my former platoon leader and XO of the Wolfhounds Charlie Company. They all wrote sworn letters of testimony, including myself, concerning this. And Father Jim wanted to get out what happened to us, and he wrote this story for the VFW magazine. And I think he did a pretty good job with it, and I think it stayed pretty close to the facts of what happened that day.
Everybody, please click on that. Todd put it into the chat. Nancy, you've had your hand up for a while, and then Rich.
I was just wanting to follow up with something that Jerry said about how the Wolfhounds would spend a month or so out in the field, in the bush. And as a donut dolly, we tried to visit units that were on fire bases and LZs, but it was really hard to ever go see the Wolfhounds because they were too far out, and the only time we could see is when they came in to Puchi or Daochang or Tainan, and so we made a special point of trying to see them. But during Tet, we saw a lot of them. We visited a lot in the hospital, and there were a lot of Wolfhounds in the hospital. It was really a hard luck, just always in the thick of it, unit that our hearts went out to them.
I echo that, Nancy, and that's just from me reading John's book. Jerry, do you know of any other books about the Wolfhounds, especially Vietnam, other than John's?
No, I don't. I mean, there could be, but I don't know of any. But John's book is so real to me. I mean, I couldn't put it down when I started reading it. I was done reading it in 2 or 3 days. And I felt like I was back there because it was so real. All the things he experienced. The only thing different between me and John is that he went to R&R in an Asian country, and I went to Australia because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to any Asian countries. I went to Australia.
Rich, you were waving your hand?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Jerry and everybody else who kind of knows me, I'm a clinical psychologist. I served not in Vietnam, but during Vietnam as an ER medic at Andrews Air Force Base. I now dedicate all my research to all those who fought there and all those who did not come back. And Jerry, I'm interested, I don't know that you got to go into a great deal of detail. Tell me about the connections you have with squad members, and tell me about the effect of losing those people you're so connected to.
Well, I lost 4 people in my platoon that day, and we were very close.
Yeah.
And, well, except for the sergeant who came the day before. I didn't know him that well. But it just like was a big loss, like losing people from your family. I know
Yes.
that during the first 4 war and Second World War and Korean War, the guys you went to basic training with, the guys you went to infantry training, and the ones you went to battle with, you all stayed together.
Yeah.
But they wanted to try something. Well, they wanted to try something different in Vietnam. Send you to basic training with one group of guys, infantry training with another group of guys, and Vietnam with another group of guys. Well, they thought that if somebody got killed, you wouldn't feel it as much. What they failed to realize is, as soon as you're there together for a period of time, you start bonding, immediately bonding.
Exactly.
And your family, they're your family. And that's what they didn't realize, and the effect it had on us. And when I received my Purple Heart, I wasn't thinking of any Valor Awards. I was thinking about the loss of my friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That still today sadly haunts you and so many other combatants. So I ask you, what is the VA doing or can do to help all of you come to some kind of terms about those you lose?
Well, I mean, I go to the Philadelphia VA. They have I go to the clinic for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Sure.
I also go there for traumatic brain injury because I have memory
Sure.
problems and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I mean, when I came home, they didn't let us go to the hospital. They sent me to a clinic. And I came there with paperwork from Fort Benning, Georgia that said I was seeing a neurologist, severe headaches, tinnitus. And what they did was sent me to a psychiatrist. I didn't go back there for 25 years. I was
Wow.
untreated for 25 years. Until somebody I work with, who's a Vietnam veteran, said, "Jerry, I think you're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder." I said, "What's that?" And he explained it to me, and I went. I've been going there ever since, to the hospital.
You, like many other people, have more than just PTSD. You have complex PTSD because you and your squad would go repeatedly into danger zones.
Rich, I was going to actually ask about that because my understanding, just reading from John's book, Jerry, and I just saw John pop on, and I think he fell off again, so he might be working on getting on. But Jerry, the mission that you were on in Renegade Woods, but you would go out on ambushes. You would go out and clear villages. Like you wasn't just patrols. Like there was a lot of different moving parts every single time you went out, and there probably wasn't.
You're going through a village. You're on high alert. You don't know if somebody's going to come
Right.
out from somewhere and shoot at you. You don't really know.
So in a situation like that, you have to be what we call hyper vigilant. And
Yes.
it takes a long time when you leave that zone to reveal or revisit your what we call homeostasis, for you to settle down. The
Even
other
to this
issue,
even to this day, I'll look out my windows and doors. I'll make sure they're locked. I do all this outdoor.
that's what we call the complex.
All right.
Yeah,
I see John.
It's complex.
I see John popped back on. John, let's see if we can ask you to unmute. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
We did ask John to unmute, and he's walking away.
We'll get him.
Okay. Well, one more thing I got to say.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for an apology from all these political people that sent us to Vietnam. I want an apology from them and a welcome home from them. Okay. And from the government of the United States to all the Vietnam veterans, because we never got a welcome home. I want them to welcome us home officially.
Well, we'll be absolutely happy here at Veterans Breakfast Club to welcome you home, Jerry. And I know as John's sort of getting his some technical difficulties here hammered out, I'd love to continue on with you, Jerry, and just what I want to bring up, and something that sort of rang with me from our conversation last week, our open conversation, was the D-roast date. And it's just struck me because we had so many people chime in during last week's conversation. Jerry, do you remember your D-roast?
Yeah, when I left, yes.
Yep.
The 11th of July, 1970.
What did it mean to you that day? What was that day like for you? Not necessarily like getting home into the States. We know that that was difficult for the Vietnam vets, but that day in Vietnam when it was time to go.
First of all, when I got on the plane, commercial plane, everybody was cheering when we out of Vietnam airspace, and it was a long flight, like 18 hours. And I still can't believe to this day that they brought us. I went to Oakland, California. They gave me a uniform, all my decorations, and they said, you might not want to wear the uniform at the airport. I said, why is that? Because you might have a problem with demonstrating. I said, what do you mean? I'm wearing my uniform. I'm proud of my uniform. I'm wearing my uniform. And I wore it home. But I still can't believe, I know in World War II, when people were in battle, they sent them to different places. They didn't come right home. They had a chance to unwind and maybe talk to psychiatrists or talk to doctors. We didn't have anything. We're in a war zone one day and walking the street the next day. I can never understand that.
John Quintrell, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, we're broadcasting.
Hey,
Hey, Jerry, we're broadcasting live and direct from Big Sky, Montana.
yes.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. John, thank you. And Jerry, thank you so much for sort of just jumping in. I'm sure your first time with VBC, you maybe weren't expecting to come on and start telling some of your story. And I'm sure that we really only scratched the surface. So please take this as an open invitation, Jerry, to join us again.
Say, if anybody wants to see my award ceremony, just go on Google and put in Jerry Tempesta's award ceremony and you could watch it.
It's fantastic. I'm glad it's been archived and able to be viewed. John, I know that we have about 20 minutes here before we would hit time on our 8:30, and we think we had Jerry here to sort of talk to us a bit about his time with the Wolfhounds. We got into a bit of his year. He had many wonderful things to say about your book, My 365 Days, and I echo a lot of that. I was talking earlier about how the book is one of the more harrowing pieces of literature I've read about Vietnam. You went through what I said earlier. You went through the suck, and that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it, all right. But I would answer any questions anybody has. And again, I apologize to all of you for being late. I was on dialysis this afternoon or this evening, and they had technical problems, so I couldn't get started at my time. So please forgive me for that, and possibly I might have an opportunity if you invite me. I would come back and share everything about the book and so forth. So, Todd, good to see you there.
Good to see you, John. Thank you for joining us.
So anyway, the book, just a few things. It's an Amazon bestseller. It's right now in the hands of a production company in Hollywood. They're looking at it to do a full-length movie, and they've got the company that have almost got an actor to sign up, and so that's very exciting. And then as a result of the book, of course, I did a couple of different podcasts. One was an 8-episode podcast called Someone's Killing the Wolfhounds. And then the other one is just by the title of the book, My 365 Days with the Wolfhounds. And that can be found on Apple or any of those places that you can pick up podcasts. So
Someone's Killing the Wolfhounds is like a dramatic telling of the book, correct?
Well, it's you got to remember that they hire a Hollywood writer and actors, and all the voices are people that they hired. And I lost a little bit of creative content when these people are trying to get you in front of people to get a book signed. Then these people are gonna. It's not exactly the book, but it's a lot like the book. That's what I'm going to tell you. Mm-hmm. So the book, of course, is the book, and two reasons I wrote the book, you guys, is number one, I wanted to tell the truth about what happened in the 2nd Platoon Charlie Company from 68 to 69. And the second reason is I wanted to tell the story of not only the guys that I served with, but also the 45 guys in my platoon that got killed the year that I was there. So I don't want their story to ever be forgotten. And apparently now I've got that job done, because the book will be around long after I'm gone. And but Jerry was over there the same time I was. He probably told you that. And he was in 1st platoon and I was in 2nd. And although we didn't operate together, we experienced a lot of the same things. And a couple of incidences, of course, in the book. The Diamond Fire Support Base, we had 3 of those. And basically what that was is the Army decided in their infinite wisdom that they would put us as close to the Cambodian border as they could and see if they could get the NVA to run over the top of us. And they forgot to tell us about that, though, that they didn't let us in on their plan. And of course, when you read the book, you'll see that my squad was out on the ambush patrol that night, and the fire support base got completely overrun. All of the guys we split my squad and another guy, we split. Half of them stayed in the base and half of them went out on the ambush patrol. So the ambush patrol faced 300 NVA as they came into our position, and we pulled back, and then what it turned out to be was a heavy weapons outfit. And we could tell because they started setting up the tubes and throwing the base plates down. And then all of a sudden, little red lights started showing up. And of course, that's the little light that they can use to adjust the aim and so forth. So anyway, we had a decision to make. We knew what they were there for. We knew they were going to hit our guys. And so we made the decision that we would ambush them and open up on them and see if we could disturb or interrupt what they were doing. And that's exactly what we did. And within the first 2 minutes, we had one guy killed, a couple wounded, and we were literally, we were knocking these guys off wholesale. And in the dark, it's hard to tell exactly how many, but there was a lot of them that were taken out of action. And then, of course, they figured out where we were at, and then they turned their fire on us, and it was time for us to leave. And so we just left and went west. And luckily, there was a berm out in the middle of nowhere out there that we were able to get behind. And then we fought a good fight for the rest of the night. And once they found out where we were at, they brought a 51 caliber on wheels, and they started nailing the berm in front of us. And I'd always heard that a 50 caliber would go through earth, but until you actually see the earth tearing apart next to you, and you know that that's a 51 caliber bullet, there's nothing like it. And of course, we were all doing the best we could. One of my guys stood up with his M79, Bobby Connell, and he took one shot and he hit the 51 and the operator and knocked it out. And so he saved our lives that night. And there's so many interesting things in the book.
Well, John, let me interrupt you real quick. How long were you in Vietnam at that point?
Oh, with the diamonds, that happened in February. So August to February.
August to February. Now, that's just like scratching the surface on the level of danger that you were in. It seemed night in and night out.
And then don't forget when we got our asses kicked on that one, they moved us out and they set up another one. They set up Diamond 2 because we had killed so many NVA the first night that they thought, boy, this is the way to get body count, without any regard. Trust me, without any regard for the guys we were losing and dying. That above anything else that happened to me in Vietnam cemented my distrust in Army leadership. And of course, that would carry on when I got home. I didn't trust the government, and I was very distrusting of a lot of things, which is very unfortunate. And, young guys, I was only 19. I went over there, Catholic kid, was going to college, decided I wanted to make money and chase girls. So I dropped out for a quarter, and guess what? I got nailed. The draft got me. And you know what? That's happened to a lot of guys. Now, the first chapter in the book is named Not So Smart. And I guess you can figure out why I named it that.
Right.
But so here's this young guy goes over there. I had no clue about anything.
You didn't know who the Wolfhounds were?
No, listen, I walked into Vietnam totally ignorant. I didn't know any of the units. I hadn't heard about any of the units. And then when I finally got my orders, they made us sit in the bleachers, and they'd call out our name, and we'd walk down and they'd give us our orders. The sergeant that was handing them out, he said, "Quintrell, Wolfhounds." And immediately I thought, I wonder why they're assigning me to a scout dog outfit. I mean, that's how much I knew about what was going on. Wolfhounds, well, that makes sense, right? It would be a scout dog outfit. Well, I didn't have any experience with that. And as he handed me my orders and I turned to walk away, he goes, "I feel sorry for you, man." And I thought, what does he mean by that? Well, I was about to find out that the Wolfhounds turned out to be one of the heaviest combat units, and took a lot of wounded, a lot of dead. And if you look at the 25th Infantry, and you look at the 2nd and the 27th, we were one of the highest units to take KIAs. So, and just in my platoon alone, 45 guys, 45, which is just, I say to people, this is a horrible number. I mean, 5 would have been a horrible number, but can you imagine that many of your buddies? And boy, I'll tell you, it does something. It does something to you. Well, and you know what happens is you go through phases. When I first got there, I was scared out of my mind. In about the 3rd month, I started to kind of know what I was doing, and so I felt like I was capable. And then another thing with Vietnam that was weird is because of attrition, when you only had like 10 guys in your squad, they needed rank. So like I was a private and I was an E4 probably in 60 days. Well, what came with that was responsibility. And honestly, let me tell you, I wasn't ready for that. And then of course, by the time Diamond came around, I was an E5 and I had my own squad, and now I'm responsible for other people's lives. And that was a horrible thing to go through.
Sorry to interrupt, John. What struck me so much is that you remember so much, and there's a lot of, it's wonderfully written, with beautiful detail, wonderful pictures. But I don't know how you remembered so much of this so many years later. Such detail.
Let me tell you guys, when I came home from Vietnam, and you know the welcome that we got, I don't have to go into that. I was determined that I would not ever tell anybody I was a veteran. Never. I just said, that's it. And you know what? I successfully did that until 2003. And in 2003, I had this epiphany, if you will, and it came to me really strong. You got to find the guys that you served with and see who made it, who didn't, and so forth. So I started a campaign where I called it dialing for dollars, because I picked up a phone and my wife had just gotten a computer, so I could access white page directories online, and I would just go look up last names and I'd start dialing. And I made thousands of phone calls. But in that first year, I found 18 guys. And now here's the deal. You find one, and then they'd say, well, did you find so-and-so? Did you find Sergeant Glover? And if I hadn't, I'd say, well, do you have any information on him? And so I became literally a hub for information. And then one day I was looking through a bunch of my orders, and lo and behold, when I got an award, all the guys of that day were on the same orders, and it had their social security numbers. And so somebody told me that if you have somebody's social security number, you could buy a consumer report on them, which would tell you where they're at, who, if they're married, phone number if they had one. It was amazing, the amount of information. That's when my project really took off. And we had our first reunion in 2004, and we had a reunion every other year since. So our reunion next year will be the 11th reunion that we've had. So, and then I can't even describe to you what it was like to get together with those guys the first time in Washington, D.C. The guys that were smartasses, still smartasses. The guys that were quiet, still quiet. I mean, it was conversations, Sean.
Where did you fall on that spectrum, John?
I called myself a wordsmith. I could be really, I could be a real smartass, but I tried to be sharp. You know, I didn't want to be a smartass just to be a smartass. I wanted to be able to get in there and get where I wanted. But
right.
These guys, it was a life-changing event. We promised ourselves that we would do it. We'd never lose track. And over that period of time, you guys, since 2004, I found 100 guys. And so my son and I decided, I don't know, it was about, 5 years ago. I said, we got to go and find these guys and video them and get their story, you know? So my son and I traveled all over the United States. And over a period of 3 or 4 years, we have 100 live videos on our website. And, oh, you guys, I'm telling you.
Are you able to put a link to that in our chat? Because I'm sure there were people, Todd included, that would love to
okay, where do I put a
or
chat?
You can just email it to us and we'll make sure to get it out. We're happy to put
I'll
it
find
in
it. I'll find it and put it in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Todd.
It's real easy, you guys. It's Wolfhounds or Wolfhounds 2nd of the 27th .com or yeah. Anyway, mine's going. But what a phenomenal thing. And then my son built the website, of course, and there's all kinds of pictures and everything on that. It would really be worth your guys' time to go see that. So
and I see that Bill Comfort, you raised your hand. Bill, you were part of the Hornets, did you call it?
Yes. Yeah, the 116th Assault Helicopter Company. I wanted to ask John that if does Fire Support Base Washington or Pershing ring a bell?
Yeah, oh sure, of course. Now
yeah,
they sent us all over the place. We were in Cu Chi, we were in Trang Bang, we were in Tay Ninh, we were in Patton, it was just a circle.
Yeah.
And the Little Bears were the ones that hauled our carcasses around most of the time. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I ran into one of them.
Yeah. So
did you met them or you honestly ran into them?
No, a helicopter from the Little Bears hit me.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
yeah, that's what it was. 1,200 feet. But Fire Support Base Washington was the one that I thought John was talking about as far as the bodies and everything, because that's the one they built near Godaha to bring the enemy across the line. And when we landed there one day to pick up some troops, why there were bodies all over the place, and you had dug a big hole.
That's what they did at Diamond as well.
Bodies in there. So maybe you guys called it something different than we did. I don't know.
Well, and one thing I got to tell you guys, I got addicted to flying. You know, that sounds sick. That is sick, because every time we got on a helicopter, you know where we were going.
Yeah.
Bill, tell them where you guys were taking us. They weren't taking us out for a picnic. They were only taking us to a place where they knew we were going to make contact.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, that gets tiring after a while, you know, because there's really no way to prepare for it. And, you know, thank God we never had a helicopter shot down. But boy, we got hit. I mean, you know, that those choppers could take a lot of abuse. Now
Yeah.
that right there is,
Purging maybe, huh? No, I don't remember the road.
yeah, I don't either.
I think that's Pershing. I think Renee put it in the
Oh,
chat here.
Yeah,
okay, okay.
it is Pershing. Yeah, I don't remember the road, but it looks a lot like Pershing. Yeah.
I put
So,
into the chat as well around that picture your two podcasts, the Wolfhounds podcast and Someone is Killing the Wolfhounds. So if anybody's interested in checking out John's podcasts, please click either of those links. I feel like we can go a couple minutes over tonight, John, but one thing I want to sort of go back to, Jerry mentioned earlier, he said the first time he met you, you were a well-seasoned veteran. And I thought that perfectly summed up where you were kind of at by the end of your book, well-seasoned in so many different ways.
yeah,
And I
you
kind
know
of want to
what?
get,
You're
I want to
right.
get your take on that idea.
What happened is after so much trauma and emotional trauma, a guy lives in a different universe. Your thinking is different. I tried my best to hide a lot of stuff in a room in my mind, in a dark room. By the time I got out of Vietnam, I was so pissed off. I mean, right, you know, I didn't get out of the field until 30 days before my ETS. And there was an agreement with the Wolfhounds that if you lasted 9 months, they would find a place for you offline. Because we were so short-handed, the first sergeant says, I can't. And you're one of my experienced squad leaders. What am I supposed to do? We got all these new guys. So that kind of made me a little off kilter too. You know, guys, here's a little side story. I never had a drink my whole life. I went to Vietnam, went the whole year, never had a drink. Everybody else was having free beers. I was trading mine for soda. And 30 days before I was supposed to go home, the first sergeant got me offline and he said, well, we don't have any place for you, but we're going to assign you to the engineers. And so I said, I don't care as long as I don't have to go back out. So I was assigned to the 65th Engineers. And when I got there, the sergeant said, hey, the NCO club has great burgers and fries. You know, if you haven't had a great burger and a fry, you need to get over there. So after I stowed my stuff, it was about 5 o'clock. So I went over there and I walked in and there was only one other guy sitting at the bar. And it turns out his name was John Close. And I walked up and sat next to him and we introduced each other. And I said, how are the burgers? And he goes, they're the best. So I said, well, I'm going to have a burger and a fry. And he says to the bartender, give him what I'm having. And so the bartender brings over this stovepipe glass and it looks like it's got grapefruit juice in it. And he's got some fruit on the top and so forth. And I drank some and man, it just tasted like soda, you know, really kind of like grapefruit. And so we ate the burgers and fries, and then we started telling each other stories of what had happened to us and more drinks. And the next thing you know, I am out of it. And I've never experienced before. This is my first time with alcohol. And so we said we'd meet each other, you know, after duty every night. So I went back and laid down in my bunk and proceeded to throw up all over myself. And I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but when it gets in the creases, when you're laying there and the vomit is sitting in your belly button in the creases, it burns you. It gulps you really, really bad. So the next morning when I got up, this is horrible. So what did I do? I went right back and John and I sat there and guess what we did? We did a rerun of what we did before. And the more stories we told, the more we were kind of mutual admiration society. In other words, you know, some of the things, he was a tanker with a cannon with an artillery piece on it. And those guys really got hammered. They do those lager sites, and NVA hit them with mortars and stuff, and he lost a lot of friends as well. So what happened, guys, is for 30 days I was pretty well drunked up. And the first sergeant called me in and he said, "You better be in here the day before ETS. And if you're not, you're staying here. You're not going to go home." So I thought, oh, I'm not going to let that happen. And I didn't. I went and got my orders. But unfortunately, for a young fellow like myself that didn't have that kind of experience in life, I brought it home with me. And when I got home, the first thing, we stopped in Hawaii to refuel, and they had engine problems. And so they said, go into the terminal, but don't leave because we don't know how long it's going to take. Well, they had to replace the engine. So about 6 hours later, after I'd sat with a bunch of other grunts, and I had every single drink on the menu. And when they said, okay, it's time to load up, I couldn't make it to my feet. So two people that I didn't know, kind guys, got underneath each one of my arms, and they drugged me up the gangplank and put me back in my seat. And I passed out, and I don't have a lot of memories, after that. But I brought that home, you guys, and it turned out to be an absolute horrible. Paul Kensinger?
Yeah, I see Rich with his hand up.
Who did?
Sorry, it's actually Rich, but
I got it. Yeah, it's Rich. It's my wife's computer, so it's Paula. And she's much better looking than I am.
Okay.
I do have a point to make about alcohol. Alcohol is a potent CNS depressant. Over time, it's highly associated with suicide. Any intoxication or every intoxication is a case of acute organic brain disorder. Over time, that can become persisting. That's part of what you experienced.
Yeah. And so I get home, and the first place I'm going to go is my mother's house, right? And I called her and I said, can you make sure that you've got some Beefeater gin there? Because she wanted to know if I wanted a special dessert. And I said, no, how about a bottle of Beefeaters? That'll work. And she goes, oh, okay. So, she didn't think anything of it. So when I got there, of course, I continued to tank up. And so she made a beautiful dinner, and the family was there. And I was about half lit. And my stepdad said the grace. And when he was done, the first thing I said, I looked at my sister and I said, would you pass me the fucking butter? The look on my mother's face, you guys. She turns to my stepdad and she said, this is not the boy that we sent to Vietnam. And you know what? She was right. Now, there's a good redemptive story in my book. I didn't stay a drunk my whole life, right? So I was able to get involved with the church, and I was able to give my heart to Jesus and get myself straightened out and so forth and so on. So, but boy, do we combat veterans have an interesting life or what?
Well, John, you went through so much in Vietnam, and there was no way that your parents could have known what you went through. And I'm afraid to ask, did they ever have any clue? Did you ever give them any indication of what you went through?
No. Remember I told you I was determined I wasn't gonna tell people I was a veteran. Well, my story was so horrible, I wasn't about to expose my mom and my family to that. So they did not have a clue. Interestingly, my mother would write me almost every day. I would try to return her letter as often as I could. And so she saved all those letters. And she said, here, I want you to have these. Well, I started looking through the letters, and lo and behold, they're all the same. Nothing going on today. It rained, took a walk. We took a little hike. Nothing. I would not put anything in those. So I'm looking at it. I wonder what my mother thought when they were just almost the same thing over and over. Now, my dad, that was another story. he and I communicated some of the stuff that was going on. So,
Yeah.
and you know what I found out later? It was really hard on my parents. Me being in Vietnam was really hard on my dad. And but you know, now somebody should ask me, am I proud of my service? Absolutely. You know, I'm proud of my service. And there was a lot of things that obviously I didn't agree with, but the fundamental part of patriotism, drafted. I didn't ask to go over there, but you know what? I did, and I felt like I owed it. I felt like I had an obligation to go over there and help. You know what they told us at the time, we were fighting communism. And really weird. I kept looking the whole year I was there for a communist, and I never found one.
Hmm.
So I'm not real sure what that was all about. But there's a lot in the book, you guys, that very personal stuff. But the stories of the guys that I served with, oh my gosh. Jerry, he has the same identical stories about the guys he served with. And valor, bravery, courage, just unbelievable. And so anyway, anybody have any other questions? I'm sorry that I held you over.
No, that's quite all right, John. I was gonna ask Todd if he had any thoughts here. We were gonna wrap up, but absolutely. Thank you for jumping in. Moment's notice, John. I'm so happy that you know, everything went well with dialysis. You were able to make it tonight.
Oh,
And we do
yeah.
open invitation. Please come back. We do want to hear more.
I
But
will.
Todd,
Yeah, I'm swelling in admiration for you, John, and for your writing, for your candor, your memory, and your willingness. You're going through dialysis, and your willingness to kind of like finish that up and come here
Oh, I
and share
was
just
I
a
was
little
sick.
bit.
I was sick when I knew I was going to be late. I mean, because I had it all planned out. You know, everything was in a row, and then technical problems with dialysis is nothing a person can control. But you know, I will come back. And if you guys, how many of you read the book?
I got the book from you, so I went through it. Joe Griffey's here,
Okay,
read
well,
it.
if you
But
guys
yeah,
haven't gotten it, maybe you could get a copy and read it, and then we could really have
Let's do that.
a great discussion.
Let's do that.
absolutely. Well, I want to thank Jerry Augustine. I see. I don't know if you read it or if you had a question. Question? Okay. Well, Jerry, we'll give you the last word here before we sign off.
Yeah, my story is similar to John's. I went through combat, the whole thing, and I wrote a book very, very close to what I went through also, and being close to my fellow soldiers, you know, and everything. But hopefully next year I'll be on and I'll tell my story. Very similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was also in combat for my
Thank
whole
you,
tour.
Jerry.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Everyone, we're going to be Wednesday morning, Swickley, Christ Church of Grove Farm for our in-person breakfast. Thursday night, we'll be back on with Glenn. We hope to see you all there. John, Jerry, thank you both so much. And I really enjoyed that beginning conversation about military hair. That was kind of fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I want to wish Mary Klepper a happy Merry Christmas and happy 2 weeks in Poland. You take off tomorrow for leading a tour. Deb Bussinger, thank you for your photograph and for the story. Terry also. Thanks to everybody.
So one last thing, whenever I finish up, I always tell my audience, may the good Lord bless and keep you, and all the good things come to you until we meet again.
That's a great
God
sign off,
bless.
John. And also, welcome.